It's balanced to daylight. And the way this camera works is a Bayard pattern chip. So if anybody's familiar with the way Bayard works, it's practically, let's say you have a grid, right? And you got the three primary colors, RGB, red, green, blue. And what happens is it's got a certain pattern of those red, green, blues, how it deciphers the image. And the way Bayard works is 50% green, 25 blue, and 25 red. So if you're shooting, let's say, tungsten, really low light, like in here right now what we got, you know, you'll be starving the blue channel for information if you don't have enough stop on your iris. So it'll get noisy in the blacks. So that's something you gotta play with your shutter or provide the right lighting equipment or do whatever you need to do. A way to compensate that is if you're starving that channel for blue information, you do what you do opposite to film. When you take tungsten film and you take it outside, you put an 85 filter in it to make it daylight, right? But what you do is you put an 80C filter, which does the opposite, makes the tungsten daylight. So it gives that extra blue information into the chip. But the problem is you lose a stop with that filter, so you gotta compensate for that. So it's easy to stick a filter or you gel your lights, depending. You can go either or, but it's just, you know, the tools that you have to trade to do what you want to do.
Explain the rolling shutter issue.
Sure, the rolling shutter. All right, you guys see it later. There's a shot of the windmill turning. What happens is it's a single chip. It's got an electronic shutter. So what an electronic shutter is, it's just something that refreshes the chip. Like if it was a physical mirror rotating, it's just something that refreshes the chip really quick. So is anybody known, they point a video camera to a TV, you'll get the rolling TV, right? So you gotta sync your shutter to the TV. So you just gotta know how to use that shutter not to get into problems. Places you would get in problems with this camera.
It needs to be slower than the TV refreshes.
Exactly, or faster, one or the other. It depends how much light you got and what type of look you want. The problems you can get is if you're doing, let's say, a music video, right? And everybody likes to flash strobes everywhere and do crazy shit. So when you do that, if the strobe, and this is if you start getting really meticulous, and it'll happen once in 100 times, if the strobe hits when the shutter is refreshing, you'll get half a cut frame. You know, so either you sync your strobes to your shutter or you just shoot it, you know, you just pay attention for it. And you really got to pay attention because it's moving in real time. Yeah, if you see it, you'll see it, but you got to keep a good eye on that stuff. So.
Is it possible to sync strobes to the shutter?
Sometimes it is. Depends which shutters you have. I mean, which strobes you have. But it's also it's a question of how you sync them, because you can have the camera slave a time code, and then you can do it from Genlock box. But the other way is if you're just hitting it, say, I want the shutter to be 2000, you're just playing.
Right.
You're just playing with fire. I mean, if you look at here, let's go to that. It'll pop up here in a second. If you see that windmill turning around, if the shutter wasn't set correctly, you would get it rolling in a different direction. You know, like when you look at a car. But if you know how to do it, you know, it has a nice smooth effect to it. You'll see. I think it's after this shot or the next one.
So what's the shutter on that? I saw one these now.
Well, this is a really slow shutter because it was almost at night. I have a slow lens. That's why you get the jitter in there. It's like a half-second shutter. So that's why you get that jitter on the cat. I mean, things you give and take. You know, it's.
No, I was just curious.
No, exactly. That's like, for example, this right here. You know, if your shutter wasn't set properly, you could get a problem with this. And that's with any camera that's got an electronic shutter. That's not red. That's just the nature of the technology of how it works.
So on set, though, if, let's say I'm doing a small feature and I don't want a big monitor and stuff, I can set a look for my monitor, but whatever I want to do later is...
Well, what you could do,
exposure.
what you would do is, the camera does two things. The camera, you can monitor the output of the camera, the video tap output of the camera does two things. It can show you the raw, which is an unsaturated, ugly look that nobody wants to see, which is just the nature of raw, what it is. And then you can monitor either something called Record 709, which is the color space for HD, or red space, which is a hybrid that Red has done. Okay, what does that translate to? If your monitor is set up correctly, and you're monitoring the Record 709, and your monitor is compliant Record 709, a true HD monitor, compliant 709, calibrated 709, what you're seeing on the camera is what you're going to get on that 709. So I can take my matrix in the camera, play with it, push it to get, say, an orange or a red or whatever you want to get, right? Push it, and what you're going to see on that monitor is really close what you're going to get. But that being said, if you messed it up, you can take that metadata off and you're clean to the raw file. but then you also have to know how to expose for the RAW. You know, you can play with these things. You can change the ISO to 2000 on the camera if you want. You'll get noise if that's a look you want to go, but that means your native RAW is going to be underexposed. You just got to know, you know, that's when it comes about knowing your tool, how to play with it.
I've got a question on the speed ramping.
Yeah.
In the manual, it's giving me the impression that the ramp initiates when I hit record.
Yes and no.
Not a trigger.
Yes and no.
Okay.
When in build 17, you can set it on event, and you can set it on event.
Right.
And one of the user preference buttons can be set to ramp. So you can be recording and press the user button, and that'll activate the ramp without having to buy a separate trigger.
And then, and the ramp time, is that screen time or is that real time?
Real time. And you can play it back. After you shot, you can play back and see if your ramp was correct. So, the camera records its own proprietary file. It's R3D. That's a red file, red code. Adobe now accepts it natively. So you can use Premiere if you want. Final Cut rewraps it into their QuickTime codec. So you can use either or. To put it on the Navid, they're talking about supporting natively. I'm sure it's just a matter of time. It won't be long. But the best way is to convert it to DPX frames, which Red gives you the software to do. It's free. Anybody can download it online. Anybody can download it online.
When you record to the cards, what's the codec of that?
All the same. It's all red. All red raw. Red code raw.
What bit is that?
Well, it depends on your card. The camera always records red code raw, either 28 or 36. And that it's called red code 28 or red code 36, or red code 26, red code 38, one or the other. But what it means is 26 megabits a second, 38 megabits a second. That's the only difference. They're the same codec. Now, depends on what compact flash card you have and if you've upgraded your camera or you haven't upgraded your camera, because you got to send it back to Red for a free upgrade, what the compact flash card can accept. Because there's some formats the compact flash can't record. If you've upgraded your camera and got the new 16 gig cards on there, you can do anything you want. Anything the camera does, you can do it. It's just some limitations because of the speed of the compact flash card.
What's the highest bit, like 4K RAW?
I'm telling you, 36, 38. If you want to talk about storage, 2 gigs a minute. That's a safe approximation. 2 gigs a minute, highest resolution of the camera, you're safe.